Hello, I am Amanda Grell. I'm a social work student here at Briarcliff University, and today I am going to be sharing with you a few social justice problems that are related to substance abuse disorders. In order to better understand this, we need to see why there is a problem. Where do these problems originate? What is the prevalence of substance abuse disorders? According to a recent study from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, nearly 1 in 12 Americans suffer from a substance abuse disorder. Along with that, 1 in 5 individuals suffer from a mental illness. But these two problems are often intertwined, with many people suffering from both. In fact, that number is 8.5 million Americans suffering from both a substance abuse disorder and a mental illness. If we look at some statistics from our textbook, we see that 50% of individuals who are currently seeking mental health help are seeking it because they have a substance abuse problem, or they know an individual who does and are seeking help because of that. In addition, we see that there is a vast problem within our prison systems, with 80% of incarcerated individuals having a substance abuse disorder. So what are we doing right now to help fix that? Because this is an obvious problem. Although our current treatment has gotten a lot better, it still has some work to do. We need to continue helping push that harm reduction method of treatment. And we also need to continue to help evoke more change within people's attitudes. Because really, the reason why we don't have enough resources and the reason why the majority of our treatment centers are not as effective as we would like them to be is based on public attitude. So we have to change that. And the reason why we have a lot of problem here is because a lot of people don't understand what addiction is and how it affects the brain, and why these individuals who suffer with an addiction or who are in recovery can't just stop or continue to have issues with it. I think that this is simply based on a lack of education. A lot of individuals have not been properly educated on these topics because for most of history, we've had a very strict view on drugs and alcohol. And although this isn't a bad thing, it has changed the general public's view towards them to not help these individuals who are suffering from an addiction. Some people think that since you do have to choose to begin drinking or begin using a drug, that it's their fault and that they do not deserve help because they brought that problem upon themselves. Still others like to shift the blame onto others, like racial or ethnic minorities. There's just such a lack of education and knowledge, and that leads to so many misconceptions within the addiction process. So we have to fix that. Now we need to look at some more specific problems related to social justice problems. And how do we fix those? These problems include things like the laws our country has in place. Although these laws aren't the main problem, sometimes they can be unfair, giving an inequality of sentencing or a bias based on racial or ethnic minorities. Another big problem of substance abuse is that we don't have enough good treatment centers. And not just treatment centers, but we don't have a good long-term solution for treatment. People don't have enough access to these. I think one of the biggest problems we have is affordability and access to good treatment. We have the research out there. There is good treatment available. It's just not available to everyone. We see all the time in the news celebrities who have a substance abuse problem going to these fancy treatment centers in Malibu or on the ocean side, and they go for 30 or 60 days and then re-enter the world healed. But this isn't the way it goes for most individuals. Most average Americans can't leave work for that long. Or if they can, they won't have a job to come back to. Still others don't have insurance that covers it. And if they don't have insurance that covers it, but their job will allow them to go, they can't afford it. For people who aren't insured or who don't have a job, the process of affording a good treatment center often goes out the window. So we really need to work on making these good treatments available to everyone and affordable for the majority of individuals. Receiving good care should not be only available to a minority. And when I say a minority, I don't mean a specific group of people based on their ethnic or racial or where they're located. I mean a minority by saying only a small amount of wealthy individuals are able to receive that kind of care. In addition, we just don't have a good framework set up for sort of a checklist or a way of doing things that can be individualized for each person to help them past that initial treatment, but for the rest of their lives, making sure that they have access to resources and help that they need to help stay in recovery. So, we can help evoke this change as social work by bringing these things into our practice. They're well within our scope of practice, and for the majority of individuals, these things are already being done. They just need to be done by more people and on a bigger scale. If we're looking at things individually and one-on-one, we as social workers can help bring about this change by providing good care, by helping these individuals find good treatment, giving them the resources that they need, and helping educate them and others on how to bring about a better overall view on how we help people with substance abuse disorders. We can also look at it from a slightly bigger scale and look into that more meso practice. And within this, we need to be making sure that people have good and affordable access to the care. We have to get the community involved. We have to share those resources and advocate. And the biggest way we can do that is by educating our communities and educating the general public to help change those attitudes and to help bring about a better change. Now, if we look at it from an even bigger point of view, from that macro standpoint, what can we do if we step out of our comfort zones and we step out of our community and we look at it from that wider, almost universal standpoint. We have to help make that structure that people need, that social workers and healthcare professionals and insurance companies need. The step-by-step process in individuals who have substance abuse disorders to help them understand what to do next and how we help them transition and how we help keep them in recovery. And in order to do that, we have to advocate to legislation. We have to help get funding. We have to keep pushing at a bigger level for better treatment that is brought about by evidence-based practice. And not only that, we have to ensure that we are making this care accessible and affordable. And once we do that, but in order to do that, we still have to educate. We have to break down those barriers of prejudice and bias. I know that this was a big piece for me, and it helped me learn a lot. When I started learning about these things, learning about substance abuse and addiction several years ago when I took my first biology class, I had to help to kind of change my perspective on things because I had very rigid views on addiction, on drug abuse and alcohol abuse because of the way I was raised. My family has very strong views on it because they've been burned. They've had several close family members who have struggled with substance abuse problems for many years. And this has hardened their hearts and made their views very rigid and strict. And this played a role in how I viewed things. And so in order to break that down and to learn, I had to educate myself. I had to take the classes, read the books, and take the time to understand how the brain works, understand how addiction works in the brain, our reward pathways, the neurotransmitters that are involved. The vast amount of knowledge that is out there is overwhelming. But I found it fascinating once I took the time and the effort to stop viewing things from that harsh point of view and look at it from a point of view of understanding why these things are happening in the brain and how we can fix them. In the end, I'm very thankful that I did that. I think that it has made me a better person, and I know that it will help me in my career. To wrap things up, I'm just going to share my sources here. I was able to find a wonderful journal article from Laura Nissen. I also was able to find a great number of resources and information from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website, which is a government resource. And then, of course, our textbook, Addiction Treatment, A Strengths Perspective. Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.